There comes a time when the noise of life slowly fades, not in a dramatic way, not with a single sweeping change, but in small, quiet moments. It starts when you stop replying to messages as quickly. Then you stop reaching out to check in on others. Over time, you notice that your phone hasn't buzzed in hours, and instead of feeling lonely, you feel a surprising sense of peace. It's the silence that creeps in slowly, unnoticed, until one day it's just there. Empty group chats you don't check, birthday reminders that pass without a single message, people you used to care about fading out of sight. You thought it would feel like a loss, but in reality, it feels like relief. The thought of silence no longer bothers you. In fact, you start to appreciate it. Most people look at this silence and mistake it for coldness or bitterness, but that's not it. They think you gave up on people, became hard, became distant. They think it happened suddenly, like one day you just decided to sever all ties. But the truth is, it's far more subtle. The truth is, it happened slowly, one unanswered message, one ignored invitation at a time, until eventually the weight of it all became too much to carry. You stopped pretending, stopped explaining, stopped showing up for people who never showed up for you in return. It wasn't a choice to burn bridges. It was just a gradual realization that you couldn't keep pouring yourself into places that didn't give back. And maybe deep down you recognize this. Maybe you've been called the cold one, the one who cut people off, the one who people whisper about in gatherings you no longer attend. But here's what they don't understand: you were already alone long before you made the decision to step back. That loneliness wasn't new, it had always been there, hidden behind the pretense of connection, masked by the roles you played in other people's lives. You never planned on being distant. You didn't wake up one day and decide to stop caring. You woke up after years of being the one who always showed up, the one who remembered birthdays, the one who made time for others, the one who always listened. You had been the reliable friend, the one who drove hours for someone else's crisis, the one who made others feel seen. Then, when it was your turn to need someone, you reached out. You asked for help, for support, for someone to show up for you the way you'd always shown up for others. But when you did, the silence was deafening. Maybe one person sent a "sorry to hear that" text. Maybe someone promised to call and never did. Or maybe they were all just too busy at that moment. But whatever the response, or lack of one, what you realized in that moment of quiet was how alone you had always been. It wasn't that no one came, it was that you thought someone would. And that thought was enough to remind you that you'd been carrying the weight alone all along. That's when the equation changed. You started to calculate every interaction, every text, every invitation, like a cost benefit analysis. How much energy does this take, and what do I actually get in return? The math started to make less and less sense. You were constantly pouring from an empty cup, giving your time, your emotions, your care to people who were already full. They just wanted more. So you stopped answering texts, you stopped inviting them in. And of course, they noticed. They noticed when you stopped texting first. They noticed when you declined every invitation until they stopped coming altogether. But what they didn't notice was why you did it. You had changed. You weren't the person they once knew, the one who was always there, who always said yes, who always made time. Now, they call you cold, accusing you of shutting them out, but what they don't see is the truth. You didn't get cold. You learned. You learned that sometimes the hardest thing to do isn't keeping others close, but learning when to let go. The painful truth that your mind had already learned long before you realized it was this: connection equals eventual abandonment. You had been vulnerable before, opened up to others, shared your soul, and time and again, they left. They disappeared when you needed them most. So you stopped letting people in. You stopped trusting that they'd stay, and you cut them off before they could hurt you again. It wasn't sabotage, it was self preservation. There's no big confrontation when you cut people off, no final argument where you tell them everything they did wrong. It happens in quieter ways. You stop responding to texts for days, then weeks. You decline invitations until people stop asking. You move to a new city and don't tell anyone until you're already gone. You delete social media without making a grand announcement. And when you run into someone from your past, they ask how you've been and you smile and say, "Good, you?" But inside you're thinking, "We were never really friends. We just knew each other's names. We shared space, but never worlds. You never really saw me. I was always just performing the version of myself you wanted to see." You became skilled at it, reading the room, detecting moods, knowing when to make yourself small, when to fade into the background. You learned to manage your relationships like a performance, hoping to keep everyone satisfied, but never asking for anything in return. And when you finally stopped performing, when you stopped pretending, that's when the real loneliness set in. But it wasn't the physical isolation that hurt, it was the realization that the loneliness had always been there. You just hadn't seen it until now. This wasn't a sudden change, it was a gradual evolution. Years of overextending yourself for people who never asked for the same. Years of hoping for reciprocity, for someone to show up for you the way you showed up for them. And it never came. So you built walls, and now people see them and they call you cold. But what they don't understand is that those walls aren't there to keep others out. They're there to keep you safe from the hurt you've carried for so long. You stopped waiting for people to show up, and in doing so, you finally started showing up for yourself. It wasn't running from others, it was running toward something, toward peace, toward quiet, toward a space where you don't have to wonder if someone will be there for you because you know you can be there for yourself. You stop settling for the broken version of connection that was always offered to you. And that's when the real healing began. It's not about being cold, it's about being honest. It's about recognizing that you've given your time, your effort, your love to people who never gave it back. And it's okay to walk away. It's okay to choose yourself over the performance, over the pretended connection. It's not self sabotage, it's self preservation. And in that choice, you finally become whole again.